Modern institutions rely on the intelligence quotient, IQ, as the defining metric of human potential. We test for it in schools and screen for it in the workplace, treating a high score as a guarantee of success. Clinically, IQ measures the raw computational speed of the biological machine, specifically working memory, pattern recognition, and logic. If the human mind were a Formula One race car, IQ would be the engine, a high-speed, high-output source of raw power. But an engine alone is an incomplete system. Without a steering wheel or brakes, the functions of emotional intelligence, the vehicle possesses massive thrust with zero regulation. The physics of such a machine makes its destruction inevitable. The moment it hits the track, it will shatter against the first wall it encounters. This structural failure is why intellectually brilliant professionals frequently lead disastrous lives, trapped in a cycle of self-sabotage. When the ego is threatened, a high-functioning intellect does not provide protection. Instead, the primitive brain weaponizes that computational power to justify anger, manipulation, and anxiety. While IQ provides the entry point into high-level environments, emotional intelligence provides the internal governance required to survive them. Emotional triggers are not abstract feelings, they are measurable biological events. The brain is built in architectural layers, beginning with the primitive survival centers at the base. Within the limbic system sits the amygdala, the primary security guard for your survival instincts. Above it sits the prefrontal cortex, where logic and IQ reside. But the amygdala detects threats to the ego in milliseconds, operating significantly faster than the logical prefrontal cortex. Once a threat is detected, the amygdala triggers a physiological alarm, flooding the body with cortisol and adrenaline. During this state of emotional threat, the primitive brain severs the electrical supply to the higher reasoning centers. This is the amygdala hijack. This hijack results in a temporary, immediate drop in functional IQ of 10 to 15 points. In this state, the animal brain is driving the machine. Developing emotional intelligence is the scientific process of strengthening the neural pathways between these two centers, so the logic processor retains control. An emotional outburst represents a hardware failure of the brain, requiring an engineering protocol to repair the system. The first protocol of EQ is self-awareness. You cannot calibrate a machine if you are unaware it has malfunctioned. In clinical psychology, this is called interoception, the ability to feel biological shifts in the body before the mind reacts to them. This modern concept aligns with the 2,500-year-old Buddhist value of Sati, or right mindfulness. It is the clinical observation of one's own internal state. An unawakened mind identifies completely with the emotion, stating, "I am angry," only after the reaction has already begun. The emotionally intelligent mind acts as an observer. It logs the heat rising in the chest and the shallowing of the breath as isolated data points. By framing the threat as data, the observer notes that the biological sensation of anger has arrived in the body, rather than becoming the anger itself. This act of observation starves the amygdala of the energy required to sustain the hijack. Developing Sati allows you to step out of the narrative of the emotion and realize you are the screen on which the data is projected. Once awareness is established, you must execute the second protocol, self-regulation. Psychiatrist Viktor Frankl observed that our power lies in the physical space between a stimulus and our response. This space is known in Buddhist philosophy as Upekkha, or equanimity. While often dismissed as passive or weak, equanimity acts as a high-performance shock absorber in the face of chaos. When the primitive brain demands an immediate, toxic reaction, you refuse the animal urge by taking a deliberate breath. That pause forces the prefrontal cortex back online, reclaiming the steering wheel from the amygdala. Every refusal to react blindly performs neuroplastic surgery on the brain, physically thickening the protective myelin sheath on your neural pathways. This thickened sheath makes it biologically easier to remain calm the next time you face a threat to the ego. Self-regulation operates as a systematic program of brain upgrades that fortifies the mind against environmental stress. The highest tier of emotional intelligence involves extending internal mastery outward, using empathy to navigate the world. The ego often views empathy as a soft or vulnerable trait, unsuited for high-performance environments. But the value of Karuna, or compassion, is grounded in the realization that all human behavior is interconnected. Clinically, compassion serves as a form of tactical intelligence when dealing with volatile social variables. When a high EQ person is attacked, they do not take it personally. Their interoception allows them to instantly diagnose the attacker's own amygdala hijack. They recognize that the attacker is blinded by their own primitive brain and has lost control of their machinery. Just as you would not yell at a blind man for bumping into you, the emotionally intelligent individual recognizes the psychological limitation of the attacker. By diagnosing the psychological sickness occurring in an angry person, you neutralize their power to trigger a reciprocal hijack in yourself. A genius-level IQ remains ineffective if the individual cannot control their own neurochemistry. Without emotional regulation, the intellect remains a slave to the environment, where any stranger can dictate your emotional state. Emotional intelligence represents a foundational declaration of mental sovereignty and architectural control over your reality. Mastery is the seamless combination of Sati, Upekkha, and Karuna into a single impenetrable system. The external world will throw hurricanes, insults, and tragedies at you, but the mastered mind remains perfectly still. Stop worshiping the raw computational speed of the biological engine. True power is found only when you master the steering wheel and take uncompromising ownership of your mind.